The question I have is to ask the Minister, when will the heads of bill be published which will remove the exemption of the Defence Force personnel from the Working Time Directive Act 1997, which would allow these workers to enhance the safety and welfare of those workers by providing minimum standards of work, periods of rest and the like?
As the Deputy will be aware, the Defence Forces are excluded from the provisions of the Organisation Working Directive 1997, Working Time Act 1997. The Government has committed to amend the Organisation and the Working Time Act 1997 in order to encompass the Defence Forces. The uniqueness of certain military activities must be provided for in the regulatory framework, having regard to the specifics of the directive. Work is underway in this regard, and my department will continue to progress the legislative changes required with the Department of Employment Affairs and Social Protection in conjunction with the Department of Justice and Equality. In this context, there has been significant work undertaken, and an internal Defence Forces working group is further considering issues and will report on its findings shortly. Consultation with the Defence Forces representative associations has been initiated and will be undertaken as the current work evolves. There is ongoing litigation in respect of the applicability of certain elements of the directive to members of the Defence Force in specific circumstances. This constrains my ability to discuss the nature of the work ongoing, and it will also be inappropriate for me to comment in respect of any individual case or the legal strategy with regards to the same. As the Deputy will appreciate, the issues being considered are complex, and there is a requirement to ensure that the Defence Forces retain operational effectiveness. In this context, it is difficult to be precise with timelines. However, I can assure the Deputy that it is a priority for the Department and the Defence Forces.
I can guarantee you, having met some of those who are involved in litigations, that those litigation and possibly others will continue until the European Court of Justice judgment from 2010 is fully complied with by the state. And every one of those men and women who are in the Defence Forces understand the uniqueness of the Defence Forces, yet they're able to look at other Defence Forces or armies in other countries who have the same uniqueness but yet have fully implemented the European Working Time Directive. Others have come close to it, yet in Ireland, 9 years later, we are still awaiting even the publication of the legislation. Minister, the reason for this is these are workers, and these should enjoy proper working conditions. I got an email from one of those workers before Christmas, and it says, "This morning I came off a 24-hour duty. I get an extra €20 next month for it, but after I drive there, which costs about €10, then I make half that. But it's not the money, it's the time away from my family over Christmas. Would any of you work for 24 hours for €20 extra? Not likely. I sleep on my friend's sofa because I have nowhere to go most nights. I'm on the verge of suicide. I feel helpless and lost. I've tried a second job, but that's more time away from my kids." How do you expect workers to continue without the protections of law, which would ensure that they have, even in the uniqueness of the Defence Forces, would allow them proper time and rest, and also make sure that they get compensated when they have to work extra time?
1 minute, Minister.
I can assure the Deputy, look, this is an absolute priority for myself, the Department and the Defence Forces. As I've stated, there are a number of legal cases going on, and I have to be very careful in that the language that I use. But let me state that the current situation must be contextualised, and there are a number of legal actions pending with regard to the applications of the Working Time Directive, but are very specific circumstances. And I note, and I've looked at what you said about the 24-hour duty, something that we have put in to the pay commission, and I hope they can look at that. But there has been a considerable amount of work done to date, but more work is required, and discussions with the Defence Forces and the representative associations will continue. And let me state, Deputy, that the civil military group set up, the military have gone away, and understand that they are to report back to the Department in the next short period. And absolutely the most important thing here, one of the issues here that I am very conscious of, is that the representative associations have to be kept in on all of they are kept informed of exactly what is happening the whole way along. But there is a legislative part of this as well, which has been prepared by my colleague Regina Doherty.
One further minute.
I understand the complexity, I understand the uniqueness, but there is a frustration amongst members of the Defence Force, the delay or the no progress at all to be seen for all of the points that they've highlighted. And I know I was at the Representative Association for Commission Officers, RACO's conference at the end of November, and they hosted representatives from abroad, from the Swedish Navy, who showed how the Working Time Directive can work in times when they're not on at war or on standby or deployed, and it can be done, and it can be done here without affecting the cases that are before the courts. Nobody's asking you to comment on that, but we need to find out when we'll see the legislation, when will we see the heads of bill. Kind of, at the very least, if the heads of bill are published, the committee here can debate it, and that can inform your legislation when you fully present it. And at least then there's a message going out that there's progress. So that's the key question: when? Not kind of it will come in time, but when is it going to happen?
Final response.
I will refer back to the Deputy with timelines on the legislation, and I will come back to you via correspondence over the next week or so. But let me state, Deputy, that there is a huge amount of progress being made, albeit the rep associations mightn't see it, but I can assure you there is a huge amount of work being on the civil military side. As I stated, the military are due to report back to the Department over the next short while, but we have to look at the work practices, the activities, the needs of the organisation. There are a huge amount of issues. You just don't go and just implement a working time directive. Well, that's no good if there is some class of weather emergency or whatever the story is. So we have to look at the needs of the organisation, the work practices, the activities and everything like that. And it's necessary to ensure that all work arrangements meet all the provisions of the organisation and the directive, and that we do have dialogue. And I can assure you that there will be dialogue between, and there is dialogue between the rep associations, and I want to make sure that that dialogue continues, and that we get and sort this working time directive out, and that we get the legislation through. This does affect An Garda Síochána as well. It doesn't just affect members of the Defence Forces, but this is a priority for me. It's a priority for the organisation, for the civil and military side.
Now, number